You're listening to The Riley King Show. Good morning. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Saturday edition of The Riley King Show. Today is Saturday, January 24th, 2026. Here's what we're covering today. Bailey courts Manchester voters with a focus on the cost of living in immigration. Emotional testimony takes center stage at a New Hampshire hearing on restoring the death penalty. Millions prepare for a major winter storm across the U.S. A former Olympian surrenders after a decade on the run. Thousands rally in Minneapolis against ICE aimed a custody controversy. And international backlash follows President Trump's remarks on NATO allies. Let's get started. Bailey courts Manchester voters, highlights cost of living in immigration. Republican congressional candidate Melissa Bailey spent Friday meeting with Manchester residents, hearing firsthand concerns about the rising cost of living and the direction of federal immigration policy. Bailey stopped at the Red Arrow Diner, where she spoke with voters about affordability, border security, and other issues shaping the race in New Hampshire's 1st Congressional District. I'm having so much fun on the campaign trail, Bailey said. I love meeting people across our incredible state, and New Hampshire voters are open and honest. I'm learning a lot from them. Bailey said economic pressure dominate most conversations she has with the residents. Housing, healthcare, groceries, heating, our homes, everything is still too expensive, she said. We're starting to see some relief at the gas pump, and inflation is stabilizing with macroeconomic trends moving in the right direction. But families in the Granite State aren't really feeling that yet. The candidate also addressed immigration, push back against proposal from some Democrats in the district who have called for an abolishing U.S. immigration and custom enforcement. I stand with our law enforcement officers from local level all the way up to federal, Bailey said. Political analysts say the Republican primary in the 1st District remains highly competitive, with no clear front runner. This field is wide open, and any candidate could break through, said Neil Levinsk of New Hampshire Institute of Politics. Right now, voters haven't had much exposure to the candidates, so polling hasn't solidified behind anyone. Bailey said she is focused on building support by maintaining a strong presence across the district. It's a lot of hard work getting in front of as many people as possible, she said, but I'm seeing momentum and a lot of organic growth because people like the message. Emotional testimony dominates hearing on restoring death penalty in New Hampshire. Lawmakers in Concord heard hours of public testimony Friday on proposal of restore capital punishment in New Hampshire, with most speakers urging legislators to reject reinstating the death penalty. The House Criminal Justice Committee listened to victims, family members, advocates, and residents as they debated whether the state should revive a punishment repealed in 2019. Andrea LeBlanc, whose husband was killed in September 11 terrorist attack, told lawmakers the tragedy forced her to confront the issue personally. After 9/11, it became less of a theoretical question and more of a real question, LeBlanc said. I searched long and hard about what I really believe. One of the things I know to be true is violence begets violence always, and the death penalty is a form of violence. Other victims also testified against reinstatement. Bess, whose mother was raped and murdered during a 1969 home invasion, said capital punishment contradicts the values her mother lived by. The death penalty is a physical manifestation of hatred, the total opposite of who my mother was and how she lived her life. It would have been the last thing she wanted. It is pre-planned, state-scattered homicide, and it is unnecessary to keep society safe, Bess said. Supporters of the bill argued that the death penalty could serve as a deterrent of violent crimes and provide added protection for law enforcement officials. Dennis Green of Hampstead said execution, if reinstated, should be carried out swiftly. The things I see is it should be fulfilled in no longer than 3 years, Green said. How long has it been that Michael Addison, who killed Officer Michael Briggs, has been in jail? There should be a limit on when this is carried out, not the way it's gone on. The committee did not take immediate action on the proposal, which remain under consideration. Millions brace for a major winter storm across the U.S. More than 180 million Americans stretching from New Mexico to Maine are on alert as a major winter storm threatens a wide portion of the country. A vast region is now under winter storm warnings, with major cities such as Dallas, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. among those expected to be affected. Here in New Hampshire, we will see more than a foot of snow, about 12 to 18 inches. It is likely in southern and central New Hampshire, and accumulation of 8 to 12 inches is likely in northern New Hampshire, even more possibly in southeastern spots toward the coast. These areas could see up to 24 inches. Former Olympian surrenders after a decade on the run. After more than a decade in hiding, former Olympian snowboarder Ryan Wedding has surrendered to authorities in Mexico City, according to the FBI. Wedding has been on the FBI's most wanted list, accused of leading a drug trafficking operation and ordering multiple killings. Thousands rally in Minneapolis against ICE aimed custody controversy. More than 20,000 people endured the brittle cold in Minneapolis to take part in a citywide protest against ICE. The demonstration follows criticism of the agency after a 5-year-old child was taken into custody in connection with his father's arrest. In action, ICE officials are now defending. International backlash follows Trump's remarks on NATO allies. Outrage erupted after President Trump suggested that NATO allies were a little off the front lines in Afghanistan. The British Prime Minister sharply criticized the statement, calling it an insult and frankly appalling. Thank you for listening to this edition of The Riley King Show. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and weekend. Bye now.